Hi everyone, this is Marianne and welcome to my channel, and welcome finally to this tutorial about how to use the software called Pages to create the layout for your planner dividers. In one of my recent videos, I showed how I made my dividers for my planning system for 2023, and I showed that I made the layout on Pages. And since that day, I have gotten a lot of requests for the Pages file, not just on YouTube comments, but people have been messaging me as well. And I don't really mind sharing the files like they already exist, but I thought it would benefit more people if I made this tutorial so that this way, once you know how to do things, you can tweak it as much as you want without having to rely on the pages that I have created. You can, of course, tweak that file as well, but you wouldn't know how. So I'm making this video so that you will know how to create your own dividers using Pages. And right here on my screen, you can see that I have already launched Pages. Pages is a software that runs on the Mac computers, and it's always already installed into the system in all Mac computers. You cannot buy the software, and you don't have to. If you have a Mac computer, you already have Pages. And what I will do in the video is I will just walk you through the process. And it is a very rainy and windy day as I'm doing this, so you might hear some rain and wind in the background. I apologize in advance. And then the first step that I always advise anyone to do is to save the file, assign a file name to it, and then assign it to a location or a folder. The next step would be to turn this file into a layout file, not a document file. So just follow my cursor, click on this little document icon, and you get to access this panel on the right. We do not need the header, and we also do not need the footer, so we can uncheck these. And then we also uncheck the option that says document body, and then click convert so that the file is now converted into a layout document. Okay, next we have to set the page size. Now remember that the page size you set here will refer to the page size of the paper that you will be printing on, not the actual size of your dividers. And for the purpose of this video, and also because the paper I will be printing on in this tutorial is US letter, I will set the page size of this document to US letter. The US letter is a standard page size already on Pages, and you just click that. You do not need to create that as a custom page on Pages. And now I am just going to fit the page inside my screen so that you can see it all and zoom it out a little bit. So in this video, we are going to create an A5 sized planner divider. So we will create a shape. Again, just follow my cursor and do what I do. Click on the square, and then here you will have to manually enter the dimensions of the A5 into these fields right here. A5 is 21 centimeters in height and 14.8 centimeters in width. Now that is standard A5 size. And as you can see, some yellow lines appear when I drag the rectangle in the layout. Those are guides for you to center the image without having to measure. The image just snaps into the center. And now we are going to make the tabs that will go on the side of the dividers. The usual number of tabs for an A5 sized planner is 6 tabs in a row. So we are going to take out our calculator. And then we are going to type in 210 millimeters, which is the height of our divider, and divide that by 6, which gives us 35 millimeters. That will be the height of each tab. As for the width, I used 10 millimeters for my own dividers, so let us use that. Although, of course, if you're doing this yourself, you can set any size of tabs that you want. I'm just teaching you how to do it. Now, our dimensions for the tabs for this tutorial is 35 millimeters by 10 millimeters, right? And I'm going to put it out here. It's easy to convert that to centimeters. Just move the decimal point one place to the left, and these are the dimensions in centimeters because Pages needs centimeters. Of course, you don't have to put the dimensions of your tabs right on here, but I found it a useful reminder. And so now let us create another shape, same process as before, and this time we just enter into the panel the dimensions 3.5 centimeters by 1 centimeter. So when we enter the measurement into this field right here, and that is the tab, which we can now drag to the top of the divider. But for now, let me just show you the preferences for rulers that you need to make sure are always turned on. These two things always need to be checked because if these are unchecked and you move the image around, they will not snap into the center. So you have to make sure that the two items are checked so that the image will always snap into the center of the layout, and so that the other elements that you want to snap into the side of the image, like the tab that we just made, will snap on exactly without any overlap. It will make things so much easier for you, okay? Now we have to duplicate this little tab because if you can remember from my previous video, I did the tabs folded over. So there are actually two small rectangles in here. And then I just snapped the second tab right beside the first one. And now let's change the color of this because black looks so harsh and heavy. Just follow where my cursor is going, and then you can choose from the different coloring options here. This one that looks like a box of crayons are colors that are already preset, but you can experiment with adjusting them. Then, now that we have settled on a color, next we are going to place the text labels on the tabs. Again, just follow my cursor, create a text box like so, and then type in your label. So let's say that we are making this the divider for the inbox. Okay, so you just format it like we always do. We usually center it. And then we need to flip this onto its side. To do that, I cannot show you on screen, but you need to hover the cursor on one of the corner while holding down the Command and the Shift key of your keyboard at the same time. And when that curved arrow appears in place of the cursor, you can just use your mouse to rotate the text box. But if you do not hold the Shift and the Command keys on your keyboard at the same time, the rotation will be arbitrary, not exact, like this one that you can see right here. And if that happens, you will run the risk of a misaligned text box. So to make it easy for you, always just hold down the Shift and Command keys on your keyboard at the same time, and then hover your cursor over one of the corners of the text block or the text box, and when that curved arrow appears in place of the cursor, rotate the text block, and then you can now drag the text box to where it should go, which is over here. And now we can change the font. I have a lot of fonts in here. These are all gathered over time. I've been using Pages for decades, and the information here has been migrated several times across several laptops. So let's say we want to use this font right here, and well, I'm not sure. Let's just pick a font. And then let's say that we want the font to be white. Just follow my cursor. Next, we need to duplicate this text box and then place the second one into that small other rectangle that we made earlier. And then we need to, after placing that there, we need to rotate that second text box to face the opposite way because these are going to be folded over, right? Okay. Now I have noticed that the text is not exactly centered on the lateral orientation. The space at the top and the bottom of the word isn't equal, so the text is lower than the center. You can adjust that to make it centered by going to this panel here. Just follow my cursor and then adjust the number over here until you think that it's already centered. In this case, I have figured out that the number should be 1, and now it looks centered to me. And that looks okay. And then we do the same thing to the other text block. Now we know the number should be 1, so we just replicate that. And actually, I should have done this step earlier, but that's okay. I caught this in time. So for now, that is drag the cursor to select everything and then drag the entire set to the center of the layout. And that is our first divider. So we click the option here so that we can see all of the thumbnails on the side. And so to make the second divider, we go here and we need to right click on the mouse so you can access the panel and then click duplicate. And on this second page, you need to select the entire tab section. As you can see, duplicate it and then drag it downwards. Just drag it downwards so that it can snap into place below the first tab like this, and then the text went out of position, but you can drag them back into place quickly, and then you can delete the tab at the top. And then you can just rename the label to whatever you want. Let's call this one the outbox. And then for the third divider, just do the same process. Right click on the thumbnail of the second page, duplicate, and then go to the third page, duplicate the tab, drag it to place it below the existing tab here, delete the tabs at the top, and then adjust the placement of the text, and then rename the text to whatever label you want it to be. So that's it. That's the process. It's very easy. And then you just continue doing that until you make a total of 6 dividers. When we get to the 6th divider, as you can see, we have absolutely no problems placing each tab where they should go, and the snapping of the tab into the side of the divider, as well as the centering of the text on each tab is automatic. It is foolproof, okay? And that is the most basic, easiest way of creating the layout on Pages in a simple step-by-step. You can change the colors of everything you put on here at any stage. Just click the shape to select it, and then select your color. You can use all of these that are already preset and adjust their opacity, their RGB levels on the sliders, the amount of black in it. You can make it darker or lighter as you wish, and so on and so forth. And using all of these options alone, you can already do a lot when it comes to color. There's really almost no limit to the colors that you can choose. You can invent your own color. Just keep adjusting the sliders. Just keep experimenting with all of the options over here. And I really do like this series of grays. Here I am just showing you what you can see on the colors panel, just to give you an idea. But if you want a color that's not on here, but you're not sure how to create that color, you can go online and Google the color that you want and look for the RGB levels. And I'm just using turquoise as an example. And if you click images, you will see that there is a lot, so many different turquoises that you can choose from and actually use. And most of them have their RGB levels up front, like this one right here. But they will also have the hex value of the color, which is the series of letters and numbers on the top. So let's say we want to use that particular turquoise. We just need to go to the layout file, and then in this panel right here, and on this field, you just enter manually the hex value of the color that we saw earlier, and then you will get that color on your layout. Okay? And really, you can search online for all kinds of colors and shades, and there's just so much that you can find here. And like I said, you can invent your own color by just playing around with the RGB levels and so on and so forth. And so you know how to change the colors of each of the shapes now, right? What if you want to use just one color but in a gradient effect, meaning the dividers will have the same color but in an increasingly lighter shade? This is how to do it. You pick one color. Let's choose this teal from the box of crayons. And then, of course, we also have to change the color of the tab. So we just move the text aside a little. And I'm sure there's a more efficient way of doing it, but this is how I do it. And then I select the tabs and then set the color and then move the text back into place. And that is the color of your first divider, and the opacity of that will be 100%. For the second divider, you use the same color. Let us set the teal as the color of the second divider, again with the original opacity, which is 100%. And let's say for the second divider, we want the opacity to be at only 80%. You just enter the opacity in this field right here. Just follow my cursor. See, that is the same color but lighter. And then we do the same process for the tab. And that's our second divider, same color but lighter. And then on the third divider, we just do the same. We set the color. But we will be decreasing the opacity of everything in increments of 20%. So the opacity of this divider will be 60%. And And then the fourth divider will have an opacity of 40%. And then the fifth divider will have an opacity of 20%. And as you can see, the gradient is very, very pronounced, but that will make the fifth divider very, very light, that it won't be easy to read the label on it anymore if you use the white font. And of course, when we get to the sixth divider, the opacity of that is going to be 0%. There will be no color anymore because we're following the 20% increment. So a better way of having a more subtle graduation is in increments of 10%. So let's do that. So you can see same process, but the opacity of the second divider, instead of being 80%, it will now be 90%. And then the opacity of the third divider will be 80%. And then the opacity of the fourth divider will be 70%. And the opacity of the fifth divider will be 60%. I had to figure that out. And then the opacity of the sixth divider will be 50%. There will still be color that you can notice, and even if the color is lighter here, you can still easily read the label even if it is in a white font. So I think this is a better way of doing the gradient dividers. The gradient is very subtle, but you can see it. This is how I made my Dusty Rose dividers for my long-term archive for my year in pixels and hormone tracker. I will link that video in the description box, but this is how I did it. And I will be printing this second divider for demonstration purposes. And now I don't know what printer you are using, of course, but I suggest that you always print using the best or the highest quality settings of your existing printer so that you will get the best results on the printout. The printing will just take more time, it will be slower, but in my opinion, it is totally worth it. So this is just me showing you the settings that I used on my printer. And I use the Epson HP Li2i. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial, I will be printing this on US letter sized paper. This is the Bavania Splendor gel paper, which is 115 GSM, and it's in the color white. And if we take out the ruler and measure the printed image, you will see that it is exactly A5. It is 210 millimeters tall and 148 millimeters wide. And after letting the printing dry a little bit, I will just do the exact same process that I did with my own dividers, which was to cut like so and then fold the tab over. Now this paper is thin enough for me to still see what the image, like where the image ends on the back. But if you cannot see that because your paper is thicker or more opaque, just hold the paper up against the light so that you can see the image and you can see exactly where to fold. And then you just crease and then laminate. And then you can use your paper trimmer at this point, but in my case, my paper trimmer is not so perfect. I need new blades and they're on their way, but they haven't arrived yet. So what I'm doing now is I just trim this down to the final size using my scissors. And as you can see, I have cut off the laminated edges completely without leaving the sealed edge because this is just one sheet of paper. And I do have a video explaining when you can do that because sometimes you do need to leave the sealed edge on. And in this project, you can also leave the seal on if you prefer. But this is how I did my dividers. And then the final step would be the hole punching. And that is my little tutorial for you. Of course, you can always make the divider like double-sided. You can print an image on the back. You know how to place images already on pages. You just need to do that for the back. Or you can put two pieces of paper together, but in that case you will have to leave the laminated edge on. Well, anyway, it is up to you. You now know how to do the basics of pages and you can play around with it. So this is the exact process that I used when making my own dividers for my planning setup for 2023. I have an entire playlist that contains 7 videos showing the setup and creation process, and I will link that down below. But for me, I don't use A5. I use the A5 Slim, different dimensions, but this is the same process that I used when making these dividers for myself. So I hope this video is helpful for you. I hope this empowers you in some way to create something for your planner so that you will be less dependent on what is out there that's ready for you to buy. Please feel free to share this video with others that you know are also struggling to DIY their own planner stuff. And of course, if you have any questions, the comments section is open for all of you. Thanks for watching. Bye.